I swear, this intro music, I want to just jump and dance every time. Good morning, afternoon, and evening to our listeners across the globe. This is in12d. We're season 3, episode 26. We have a special guest with us in the studio. Apologies, Brid Walsh. With me also my co-host, Susie Bond. Susie, I'll pass on the mic.
Thanks, Ramsey. Good to be back here. It's just a cool episode that we have planned for you guys today. Another incredible Cork person like myself. I'm so delighted that we have our guest because I think we have so much to learn from her and to maybe experience even through the dialogue and the call this evening, you know, in this program. Her name is Brid Walsh. She would describe herself as a therapist, a coach, an energy practitioner. But I don't think those titles even kind of give you really an idea of really the work that Brid does. Having studied with an American Indian shaman, and you know, she's done multiple different modalities of energy trainings and work, and she really is connecting, as we said in the title of this podcast, listening to the land speak. And that connection with the earth is really what's vital in Bríd's day to day. So we want to get into the conversation with you, Bríd, and we wish you thank you so much from our hearts for coming on, and a warm welcome from all of us here.
Thank you, Susie, and thanks, Ramsey. Thanks so much for the invitation. I'm most grateful. I'm so grateful to you both.
And, you know, we were just talking there before we went live, and the premise of our show every week is the tagline, you know, ordinary people living extraordinary lives. And I'd love you, Bríd, to take us back to that point. And I think it goes back a very long way from what I've learned so far about your story. When life went from, I don't think it was ever ordinary for you by the sounds of things. Maybe it was extraordinary. It became a bit ordinary, and then you went back to the extraordinary. I'm not sure how you would describe it, but would you take us there? Would you take us back to what it was like growing up in West Cork in Ireland, in amongst the beautiful trees and the valley and the river, in near Gugambara there where you were born? I'd love to hear about that story of origin from you.
Thank you, Susie. Yeah, it is probably one of the most, you know, it is, Ireland has so many magical spaces, you know, it's such a beautiful, beautiful island. But Gugambara and West Cork and the Cork-Kerry border where I grew up, very close to Gugan, was really special. I mean, I think about it now, and what a privilege and what an amazing incarnation to come into this time. Living in a multi-generational house with my grandparents' house with my mom and dad, and I'm one of 5 siblings. I'm the youngest, and it was a really rich upbringing. We spoke Irish and English at home, and we spent lots of time outside. My father was a forester, and my mum was the local school teacher. So we were immersed very much in the local landscape, through the trees, and also with the local community. My neighbours were farmers, my friends are farmers still, and you know, we were steeped in language, in the Gaeilge, steeped in the culture, and steeped in the history of the land. You know, there was plenty of talk about fairies, lisses, parts of fields you wouldn't enter into, but you have to be a little bit reverent of and careful of, not to disturb the other world, you know. So the conversation was, you know, the banshee was talked about. I think everybody knows the film, The Banshee of Inisherin, but you know, in my lifetime, I'm not that old, but I'm in my mid-50s, but you know, the folklore was very rich in the area, and the stories, and people were careful with the land, and there was a very, you know, there was a respect for the land, and there was the reciprocity and relationship with the land was really important. Land was, my father used to grow vegetables in a very small patch of garden, and I remember him resting pieces of that very small land, and he would grow potatoes in a neighbor's farm, and he would rotate. It would rotate to different areas on our neighbor's farm to support the land to recover and rest. So there was a lot of singing, a lot of ceol, a lot of discussion about St. Finbar and the oratory in Gugan, and it's so rich and beautiful up there. I say up there because we lived kind of lower down, but it's very dear to my heart, Gugan, and you know, the local spaces of Glengariff, Bantry, all Macroom, all that area in Muskerry and in Mooscree is very close to my heart. And you know, growing up in the culture of the GA and a whole range of things was so, it seems like to me now that I'm just grateful to have been born at that time. To have been exposed to and being able to be sensitive to sitting by a stream and listening to the ripples in the rock pools, and so it was a really rich exposure, if you like.
Yeah, it's such a special place. A lot of the retreats that I've done in Ireland, it's always there. I always bring people there. It's such a special place to go to. So I've brought multiple groups there, and I've just had incredible experiences there myself, just as a day visitor, like. And during the summer there, my friend and I, we did the St. Finbar's Way, the pilgrimage from Dunmanway to Guganbarra over Kilway, 2 days. And there's something really very, very like mystical and magical almost when you just spend time, even in the quiet, kind of when you're just walking, you know, the distance. Very, very special.
Yeah,
something it gives back an awful lot. It's kind of in a very non-local kind of space. It's not, isn't it? It's a very
it's very vibrant, Susie, isn't it? There's a real richness there. But I've also, you know, hearing you talk about it, there's restfulness in the space there, which is often why a space can be so nurturing for us as we pass through it or sit in a space in nature. It's really special, for sure.
Yeah. So you grew up on a land in the middle of nowhere, which is beautiful. You're talking about it, and I can just visualize it. Was that the start of your connection to the land, the trees, the vegetation, the animals around, and how did that all shape you into today?
Thank you Thank you for such a rich question, Ramsey. When I was very young, I had a real sense in my physical vessel, in my body, of my surrounding spaces. And I had a real sense of the more than is seen with the outer eye, if you like. And I used to hear animals, pain. I could hear animals in pain. And, you know, sometimes it was coughing, sometimes it was whatever it might be. But so I was hearing more than I was seeing, if you like. And when I was about 13, Ramsey, things were very loud, you know, so that I was receiving multiple pieces of information, and I kind of didn't know what to do, is the truth. I didn't know what this was all about. I didn't talk to anybody about it. I didn't, you know, it's a bit odd to be able to say to somebody, I can hear things over there that nobody's talking about, you know. So I didn't really get into it at that time. I've since come out a bit more about it with my people close to me. But so it was hearing more and trying to make sense of what I was hearing, not understanding, not necessarily having somebody to walk me through or support me, and with spaces and places. So when I hit 13, and it may have coincided really with puberty, that I asked that it all get turned down. I can't take it anymore. Can you turn it down? You know, and it really did happen. It turned down. And then when I was 20, I embarked on a massage and counseling training. And at that time, I also started working with Imaho, who's since transitioned into his next iteration, I'm sure. And that sensitivity was cultivated, I think, in a way that I was able to not feel weird, because I'd kind of felt weird. Sometimes I still do feel a bit weird or a bit odd, but maybe I've accepted most of myself a bit more now. So yeah, I you know, spent a lot of time with Imaho, and the body work and the massage and the counseling kind of opened like layers of an onion, if you like, and opened me up to multi-sensory experiences, which I began to be able to, because I was a bit old, I was in my early 20s, I was older, and I was able to manage myself a little bit better, you know.
Imaho is the American Indian shaman.
Yes, and he passed away actually a year and a half ago.
Okay. And was that done in Ireland or was it done in the US?
Yeah, that was in Ireland. He used to come to Ireland twice a year and ran workshops, and he used to travel around the world. So there was an opportunity to travel with him, but I never did. All of the training I did with him was in Cork. And he often talked about Cork being a very rich place of light, you know, which was fascinating, because I just remember him commenting when he first came to Ireland, there was kind of rubbish on the streets or whatever. But after about 5 years, he said that people were beginning to take a bit more care. So the street, things were cleaner, the energy was, but he said it was a really special place, of course, for the energies.
So that's why you with his training, basically. Sorry, I jumped in. With his training in your environment, that strengthened your. your connection, but your connection was already strong from the beginning. Basically, it opened up whatever you tried to shut down, because we do go through phases where we're all weird, and then we don't want to be that weirdness in our head, you know, and
Yeah.
then it just goes into a phase of being quieted down, and then something happens and it flourishes back again. So with his help, you were able to reignite your connection to the land and everything around.
Yes, to the land, to myself primarily, because I'm a bit like a walking sensory field, you know. So it was really allowing myself the space and the time and the study and the openness to take my time to cultivate that it was okay to feel like this.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and it didn't finish at that time. I'm just going to put a light on. It didn't finish at that time. That has been a journey for 30 years, to tell you the truth, you know.
Yeah, I was thinking when you were saying that, if you want to put on your light, a quote that I took off your website, Bríd, is going deeper to remember who we truly are. And I suppose the peeling of that onion is a journey we've all been on, every one of us here, and I'm sure most of our listeners as well, where, you know, who do you think you really are? You know, even asking yourself the question, like we ask it in meditation all the time, who am I? Who am I? And it's constantly evolving. Like, you know, like we just are unfolding, we're unwrapping something. And then you're going that bit deeper. So did you do other kind of practices with the shaman, with other modalities?
So I think that was I feel complete really about Imaho, but I did go on to do some study with Donna Eden.
Oh yeah.
She's a particular, maybe vintage of energy medicine worker. I studied EFT, emotional freedom technique, became a practitioner of that. And so really, to be honest, my life for since I was 20, I'm 55 next month. So when I was 20 up until, and it's still going, I'm still studying. It's been an evolution of what's next, you know, and really my practice is around what's next, what needs to happen next so I can continue to do my work in the world. I asked myself that question last November, for example, and I said, what's next for me? And the next piece was to find a really good body worker I could work with to enable my lines and my energy levels and my energy field to open up even more, to receive more light and to be more sensitive, you know. So listening to those things is really important. But it's always been energy medicine and energetics. And although I spent 25 years in the health food business in Cork and in the UK, like that was a very useful skill to have. When somebody would come into the health store, straight away I would like, this is what they need. But somebody else would say, well, how did you get to that if it's not kind of obvious? And it's like, well, did you see, you know, their ring was, you know, there was swelling around their finger, there was this, there was that. So there was multiple pieces of information that I was naturally or instinctively maybe or intuitively able to pick up that wasn't necessarily everybody's bag, you know. But that's not a better or worse thing. That's just a commentary, you know.
And I suppose you start to learn, like when you start working like that in that capacity, like using that intuition, using your, your instinct like that, and being able to see how you can trust it and you can just support it. And it's like an instant knowing sometimes, you don't even know how but you know what I mean? It's like that inner knower.
Yes.
Not in the terms of like a know-it-all, but genuinely, like, just the information comes to you and you drop it off, like you just deliver it and see how the person responds then, if they go for it or they don't, whatever it is you're suggesting.
Yeah. And it's interesting you say that, Susie, because that, for years I didn't know how I knew. I didn't know that everybody didn't have this thing or know this thing or live the way I live. And I kept myself very quiet. I kept maybe this side of myself very quiet, and kind of tipped away in my own way and in my own world, if you like. And I was different to other people. I was left-handed, although my sister's left-handed. I was left-handed. I spoke Irish. I was, a rural country bumpkin. I was a whole range of, I was a whole bunch of different, So I kind of I almost tried to fit in. I tried to fit in. And I guess I'm comfortable now where I am, but it's taken decades to have the confidence to meet you and receive your invitation and say, yes, I'd love to share myself as myself with you and your team and your amazing, listeners. So
yeah. And I think everybody can relate to that too, Bríd. I think we all have that sort of, there's the doubting Thomas in all of us, the one part of us that doesn't have confidence in, and we all have to go through that too. But I think then when you really step into who you really are and you start to, speak with your own integrity, and even if what you're saying isn't the same as what everybody else is and not being the same, I think that, we kind of keep building on that and we find each other. We meet people then that are similar, you know what I mean? And you kind of, I suppose we just kind of find our tribes basically, like, which is kind of how Ramsey and I ran into each other when we were studying with our guest from last week, Suzanne. We were both studying with her, and that's how we met. And it's just being able to relate because of the sensitivities that you have, and we certainly have had that experience too. So just to kind of pivot a little bit into like where all of this, like decades later, has taken you. You're working with organizations, you work with people with trauma or stress related kind of situations, and as well as that, then there's the whole working with the land. And so I don't know which area you want to go into first. Working with people directly, is that how it happened, or was it working with the land?
Yeah. So I guess there's a couple of strands. So I do work with individuals because of my training and experience in counseling and coaching, if you like. But my way in, or the way I work, is really around supporting people to remember who they are themselves and to advocate for the love that somebody is, to advocate for the beauty in the essence of who they are, and not the story that they were told or not the criticism that they were given. That's not who any of us are. We can have received criticisms from bosses, from teachers, from hurling and football coaches. We can, we can be told as a young person that we're not good enough, or whatever it might be, and people believe that that's true, you know. So my work with individuals is unraveling that through processes, through a practice. I get people to do a daily practice, and we take it one step at a time, because everybody's at where they're at, and there's nothing wrong with where anybody might be in this present moment. You know, where I am isn't a better place than where you are. We are where we are, and that's okay. And I just support people to I support people to remember, you know, who they are. And they're not the story, they're not the drama, they're not the trauma. And I do work on different layers. You know, we talk about layers, consciousness, different layers. You have various layers of consciousness. You know, when we're in victim consciousness, somebody else is always to blame. When we kind of move through that, we realize we can actually take control and have sovereignty and agency within our lives. And then it becomes a practice from there, how to grow and develop and rebuild new things and let go of old things. So that's very much the individual one-to-one work. And I work with farmers. And with farmers, I do land assessments. I see farmers contact me because they may have various things happening on the farm. There may have been trauma through generations on the farm, and the farm may not be thriving or may not be going in a direction that somebody wants them to go. So I support farmers with that, and I go and visit farms, and I make plans for farmers and give them processes to do as well. I do on-site work, I do remote work, and I also work with, there's a retreat centre in Somerset I support called 42 Acres.
Oh, that was I think that was coming up just in our ticker there just a while ago, 42acres.com. Yeah, that's a regeneration, is it? Is that what you were talking about earlier about that?
Yeah, so it's an estate of 100. It was 42 acres. Now it's 173 acres, but they've got two different sides to. It's a retreat centre, but they also do regenerative agriculture, and they are a big. They run rewilding programs. They've got some wild endangered species there that they're housing to support. I live in the UK, and I work there. So not all the, I work there a few days a week. So there was a lot of work done on the land there, healing the trauma on the land there a few years ago. And then I noticed a change where the people who were working on the land were willing to have support to support themselves with, when we increase a frequency of something, or when we turn something up. So when you turn up the land and then people are walking on it all the time, it can impact their energy field. So I've run some programs with the team that work at 42 Acres to support them to understand what happens them physically in themselves when land healing happens.
Yeah, I'm going to pry that open a little bit more, because this is what I'm really interested in. It's that relationship between the land and the people. You know what I mean? We coexist. We need each other to a certain degree, and so that's an area that I'm really fascinated by. Like when you talk about trauma on the land, is it like when the land has not been kind of farmed correctly? Is it pesticides and kind of, or is it trauma within the psyche of the previous owners, or, landlords or something like that? Is it trauma like if something occurred on the land, like a a war, a battle a few hundred years ago or something. Can you just break down what that trauma of the land is, and then the relationship to the people, maybe somehow that makes it?
Yeah, so it is, it's multi-pronged, you're right. So I've done some work in Ireland, in West Cork, on the land where there was trauma and there was a battle, as you mentioned it. I've done some healing work in those spaces, and also in Bantry Bay. I've done a lot of work specifically in Bantry Bay, and that was to do with the trauma post. In 1979, the Betelgeuse sank there, and there was a huge oil spill. There used to be an oil storage facility in Whiddy Island, and that was very traumatic at the time, in 1979. And so I've done some healing work there in the Bay, not on anybody's accord, only because the Bay asked me to do it, so I did. And but regards to taking 42 acres in Somerset as an example, you know, the land, because people are working on the farm and on the estate. When I went there first, it was a smaller concern, and the trauma was almost limiting the capacity to thrive, because there's so much vibrancy in nature, and when it's not vibrant and flourishing, even though so there was stuff locked into the land, and I could hear things and see things. And I honestly, because I don't really know a huge amount about the history in the UK, I was hearing things and then doing my work and doing some healing. And then a month later, somebody said, oh, that's where there were witch trials in the 400 years ago or 600 years ago. So I sometimes don't know what I'm hearing, but I'm doing what I'm told to do by spirit to keep the healing happening. So then when the land work is complete to a level, when I'm told that's it for now by the land, I then keep an eye on how the team might be doing. And I converse with the team and how are they doing. And then we've been able to monitor things like sickness. So when I came in to work with the team, sickness in the team and staff retention and a number of things like that changed after a period of time when the well-being program was set up for the team there. So being in a well-being center, people come from all parts of the world or this country, and they have a lovely time, and then they leave their emotional baggage in the corner and they go back to wherever they came from. And then somebody comes into the room after them and, it's dense, it's heavy. So I was able to support the team to show them how to clean their own energy systems, how to blow out anybody else's energy out of their field. And it's made a big impact. And there are other elements of the business that I get involved in too, that I basically check everything for leaks. And I don't mean water leaks, but if there's an energetic leak, sometimes they do show up as physical water leaks. But so that's what I keep an eye on there.
I have a quick question. Would you be able to shed a bit more light on how you do that clearing? What is it that you connect with, or you say, or you do? Do you sage? Most people sage, or is it a bit more frequency manipulation in order to change the core of the vibration of that room or earth or the space you're working with?
So good question. Good question, Ramsey. It's both, actually.
Okay.
I do both. Yes, I use sage. I use a sound as well. I use sage. I use sound, and the place I begin from is my heart.
Mm.
So that's the first thing I need to do, is to get myself in gear, if you like. And then I'm able to ask when it's complete. Sometimes when I leave when I come home from Somerset to Hampshire, I check in. Sometimes I leave vortices in different spaces continuously spinning. I check them remotely. I tweak them remotely. And then, because there are a lot of people coming to run retreats there, I make sure that the place is clean energetically for a new arrival, and then clean it down once people have gone home again. So it's, there's a I won't say constant, but it's a regular updating.
Yeah.
It's like going to the doctor. You get your first examination, and then this is what it is. And then you have to continue a certain regime of a lifestyle in order not to go back to where you were, but to keep on to keep your energy uprising throughout that point. Very
Yeah.
interesting.
Or a bit like going to somebody who does acupuncture. Somebody who puts the needle in and then they leave it, and then they just turn it ever so slightly, and then it opens the flow a bit more, and then etc. So yeah, great. Yeah, that's how it works. And within any situation, intentionality is really important. It's a big starting point for me. And listening. And sometimes I get answers the people I work for don't especially like, or it doesn't match. It's like, no, that isn't a good idea, because the land doesn't want that at this stage. And it's hard to say that sometimes. But it's a negotiation. It's a negotiation with the land, ongoing.
I was we had a guest on last season's show that Ramsey and I met at the conference in the UK, the Science and Consciousness Conference. His name is Hans Andvik. I forget which episode it is, but he's written a few books in resonance with nature, and that's what he's a biologist, but he's working with the energy of land. And I studied with him after, because I was fascinated by his work, and like he's working with large, big hectares, thousands of hectares of land in war-torn parts of Eastern Europe and things like that. He was brought into Russia, for example, by Gorbachev. And what I was fascinated to learn, and I'm still reading his books now, is how he communicates with the land. And when he's teaching it, he doesn't use a pendulum, I don't think, himself anymore. He just trusts what comes to him. But when he's teaching, the groups and the teams that work with him, they start off with a pendulum or something like that to figure out the kind of the parameters, of how long it needs to go on for. And I'm fascinated that the land answers, that there is a how do I say it? Like the land is reciprocal. It's a two-way communication, basically, which I find absolutely fascinating. And like his work, he's using different symbols like mandalas, different mantras, crop circle patterning as well. Like there are a number of things that he uses. And then I read about somebody else's work, and the work she's using is music. So she uses certain music, and because of the frequency of the music, to and for how long you should play it, and what frequency, how long.
Yeah.
It's to me that's fascinating. Can you give us a bit more on that? Can we just go a little bit more into that kind of? How do you do that communication? Like, is it telepathic? Is it just that knowing again? Is that how you, or the subtle hearing?
Well, it's interesting you talk about when he was teaching, he used things. And so it depends. If I'm with somebody, like if I'm with an owner of a place or a farm, or I might use a pendulum, or I might use dowsing rods. Okay.
Yeah.
And, it's good to be able to show the mind there's a change. Something's different. Something's happening. When I work on my own, I don't always use the pendulums or the rods, but it's good to be able to it's good to be able to use a tool as well, to be able to make a path or mark a water line through a field. So they're really useful tools. And on the subtle energies courses that I run that I co-teach with Patrick McManaway, we teach people how to use the pendulums and the dowsing rods. But it's, it comes with time, and the biggest thing that can get in the way of accuracy is our ego, our desire for a certain outcome, because we can influence things. There's no question about that. But if we want the truth, then we do need to put all of that aside and really pay attention, even if it's not what somebody wants to hear, And land does communicate, trees do communicate, flowers and plants. There is a place that ran a research program, I can't remember which country it was, but they created a system where they put probes on plants and used a synthesizer to make the sound from the plants. And they were able to record and hear the plants, and then somebody would sing to the plant and the plant would respond. And then they were quiet where there was no communication from the plant. But then if you went and sang again, the plant would respond, to the point where they had classical evenings, not Mozart or anything, but people who played classical instruments go into a forest and they put probes on different plants, and the people would play their instruments, and then the nature would respond.
Wow.
So it became a concert in nature, by nature, Wow. I'm sorry if I've gone off tack or with your questions.
I'm going to bring you back. I love that example, because I've been, The Secret Life of Plants, you've probably read that book as well. Like when they put the lie detector on the plant, and the work that he was doing, and that was back in the 90s, as far as I know. It's a phenomenal. All this work has been ongoing. So nature keeps calling us. It keeps getting our attention. And just before we went live, I was telling Ramsey a story about when we were on a retreat in India, and how it was the first time I was ever in the scenario where I literally heard a tree calling me over. And I was like, am I really doing this? The logical mind is like, are you seriously doing this now? And the other part of me is like going straight over to the tree, and this experience is happening. And like, it led to a very profound kind of experience, not for me, well, it was for me too, obviously, but for the other participant. Like, it was getting her attention. So like, I think that's what's always surprising. You're not always the one initiating it. It's not
Yeah.
us and the plant. It's the
That's
plant calling us. That's the part that really, really just surprised me the most. I was like, wow, like the tree knew I was there.
for
You know what I
sure.
mean? It's just so like, wow. But I want to just bring it back to the Animate Earth Collective. I think we have
Yeah.
that ticker, because you did just mentioned about your courses that you do with, is it Dr. Patrick McManaway? Is that how I say it?
That's
I
right,
don't want to get
Patrick.
his name
Yeah.
wrong. Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's like, I heard a couple of conversations, podcasts that you did and he did about some of that work, and that's how I got to know about you in the first place, Bríd. So, would you like to share a bit more about your, projects that you have been working on or in the pipeline with him?
Yeah. So Patrick and I come together a few times a year, 2 or 3 times a year, and we teach a level 1 course called Subtle Energies of the Land, and it's run through an organization called Animate Earth, and so we take people on a course for maybe 4 days, 3 or 4 days, and we talk about how to begin the process really of connecting with subtle energies and the intelligences of the land. So we teach people understanding subtle energies, how to use intuition, telepathy, the power of connection with plants, and we use dowsing rods and divination tools. So we do level 1 a few times a year, and then we do a level 2 program as well. So they're running in October. So that's where we're at the moment.
Do people come on those courses to learn more about subtle energy, or is it because they're having experiences already, or that maybe they're landowners, or they have stewardship over a piece of land or something?
Yeah, it's all of that, Susie. Yeah, either custodians or farmers. I met a man at Oxford Real Farming, at the Oxford Real Farming Conference a couple of years ago. I was on a panel there talking about subtle energies with Patrick and some others. And he said to me, "What do you do?" And I said, "Oh, I listen to the land, and I listen to what the land wants." And he said, "I've been farming the same farm for 25 years, and I don't think I've ever stopped to listen."
Wow.
We just get kind of caught up in and there's no judgment on that, man. It's just, we get caught up in people don't know, we're not talking about a different way of doing things. We're not talking about slowing down. We're not talking about, you get up and you go to work and you do your thing, and there's another way, and that's not a criticism of people who do that, but there are way more, like, everybody has the capacity to do this. Susie.
Exactly.
I'm not special. I'm just
Yeah.
maybe further along the line than other people.
Yeah, I'll just give you a quick example of what happened to me. I had a plant that I love so much,
Oh yeah,
and
that's a great example.
I asked my friend to water it while I was away for a week, 2 weeks actually. And when I came back, the plant wasn't like really alive per se, but it's kind of struggling. And I asked him, he goes, "Oh, I have to move it because there's more sun over here. It was dying from the sun." But I couldn't accept that answer. There's something in me and I keep on looking at the plant, and all of a sudden I get this voice in my head, "I'm drowning." And I go, "Well, what is that? I'm drowning." So I just brushed it off the first time, and the second time it's like, "I am drowning." So I take the pot, because it's 2 pots in 1, and I go to the sink and I undo it, and it was water to the top.
Oh,
So I
wow.
so I had to empty the water, put it on its own in the sun until it dried up and so on and so forth. So yes, you're right. Sometimes we don't pay attention because we're caught up in our day-to-day life.
Yeah.
But when you have this moment of connection with whatever is around you, they end up talking to you at the end.
Yes.
Yeah, we had a plant like that in this house that we moved to. We're not here that long. I'm in Clonakilty, and in the last place we had a lot of plants in pots because it wasn't ours. It was rented, so we never kind of put the roots down. Like, so there were all these half dead plants, I swear, when we got here, and I was like, oh look, I'll give them one chance. I'll put them into the ground to see what happens. I've been absolutely flabbergasted, like how some of them have really just thrived, like, and that's obvious enough because they've gone from a pot to the land. But there was one in particular that, even though the others were doing okay, it was still just kind of like pretty miserable looking. And I kind of said, listen, your days are numbered. I don't know what to do with you. And I said it to my husband, and I said, what are we going to do with this one? And I don't know, my husband just suddenly decided that he kind of took that plant under his wing, and he started creating this kind of special wire for, to grow up because it's a climber.
Wow.
You should see it now, Bríd. And I said to him, I can feel it knows when you're coming home. I get the sense of stuff of communication between, and when he's at the kitchen sink, he's having this communication with it. He's like, oh my God, look at all the purple flowers, He's in and out there, and we're always in this communication. But like you said, like Ramsey said, sometimes we're just a bit distracted, like, but if we give ourselves the space and the time, it's all about intentionality. It's not even about the correct watering and obviously that all helps.
Yeah.
But it's being intentional, I think, is a very important part of this.
And love is a really important part of it. And because like, I too had a plant because of the really hot weather here. I thought I'd lost it.
Yeah.
I sat with it and I said, look, I'm sorry. I was away for a few weeks and you're parched, and I'm going to put you in the shade, and I gave it rescue remedy, and I was chatting with it, and I said, I'll do it differently this time, So, and I just saw some leaves on it the other day. I haven't lost it. But people think nature isn't alive, even though we know it grows, right? It's actually sentient, People have a perception, like all of these amazing, all the geometry that nature produces, right? The difference between us and animals, really, and nature is free will. We have free will as human beings. Nature just does its thing. The acorn knows it's going to be a magnificent oak tree, and everything is in there for that to happen. And, it's the environment. So if we were to, as human beings, to talk about and share and more love, more kindness, more care, more peacefulness, amazing things can happen when we're in that place and in holding those frequencies. When you see a dog and its tail is going like this when the owner's coming home, that's the frequency of unconditional love. Somebody's measured it, and that's it. This is coming to us from a whole range of spaces and places. People have been talking about this for a very long time, but now we're mainstreaming, And yeah, it's let's be norm for a change.
Yeah, like this is the norm. This is should be the new normal, let's say, like put it that way. But I know that working with hands, it's interesting you mentioned about the rescue remedy, because that's one of the modalities that he introduces to the land when he's doing his healing work, is the Bach flower remedies, using homeopathy. And, it's interesting, like what heals the land is what heals us as well. And like from my perspective as I do a lot of retreats, and like it's about activating the inner pharmacy. For me, is being in nature. Nature really will activate the balancing and the grounding that we need. Because I think all the technology, and I love technology, I'm all up for technology. I think it's brilliant because we're able to do what we're doing right now because of it.
Sure.
But ultimately you need the balance, and the balancing for me is to go out and walk in the woods, go down by the beach, or it's out in nature, out in the elements.
Yeah. And even if I certainly feel privileged and lucky to be able to walk out in nature. So many people can't, and creating urban gardens, like plants respond when they're cared for in concrete jungles, if you like. See how nature comes through, if things are left alone in a crack in loads of concrete. It's amazing how resilient and how willing and kind and beautiful nature is with us,
Mm.
and we can do the same for nature.
Absolutely. And if you go into somebody's house where they have a garden, actually a forest growing in their living room, it's because of that interaction of pure energy that flows between the humans and their surrounding.
Yes.
And if it's a stressful home, everything dies.
Yes.
Everything dies.
Yeah.
And we're getting to the hour. I just have a couple of questions because the earth is going through a turmoil at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Humans on as an inhabitant of this earth also are going through a phase. I don't know what phase it is, but it's a phase. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
How can we together heal not only ourselves but the earth that we inhabit? Because at one point in time I'll say, well, to hell with you, get out. But so that we can all coexist in a very let's say a loving relationship between the two. And we kind of like disconnected for a very, very, very long time. And now slowly we're coming back, but something happened in the past couple of years where like things are moving faster, and it feels like if we don't do something today, tomorrow it could be a totally different outcome.
Well, I think it's really important that we have a personal practice. That's because we create a field or a vibration, and we send a pulse out into the world. So if I'm holding love in my heart for you, Susie, and you, Ramsey, I'm sending a pulse to you, because there is no separation, actually. We're all connected.
Mm-hmm.
We perceive we're separated because we're told this is it, this is my space, this is your. That isn't actually true. And I suppose listening to people like Bruce Lipton, I think he talks about the science from such an easy space to understand. There is no separation between us. Yes, we're in our human incarnation, but there is no separation at all between us and nature, and we're the one, I know it's a bit cliched to say, be the change you want to see in the world, but if you want more love in the world, if you want more peace in your life, bring it to yourself and go out from that space in the world.
Yeah, somebody said that the earth doesn't need healing or healers. you need to heal yourself first, and then the earth will pick up on it.
Yes. Yeah. That's beautiful.
Yeah, it's really when you see what's happening with that interaction between us and even the pot plants, like we were talking about,
Yeah.
you know, like how we can influence a pot plant. And so when we're walking down the street, and if we treated everybody else, just because our mind is kind of unleashed a little bit with all sorts of biases and all sorts of unconscious kind of biases, you know what I mean? It's not like we're all going around kind of thinking terrible things about people, but we have the weeds are in the mind, you know what I mean? They're in the unconscious belief system, and so we can be putting out something that we don't even know we're putting out there. You know what I mean? We can come across as being a certain way, or, you know, disconnected, or, you know, whatever. And I think that's where I'm passionate, like yourself, Bríd, about the personal practice, about weeding, do our own weeding. And for me, the weeding is in the mind. It's being able to kind of replace some of those things, question some of them, you know, peel off of some of the cultural kind of stuff that we've inherited maybe as well. And just to keep kind of, I don't know, like it's weeding the garden is what meditation is for me. Like it's just going in and, you know, taking out one at a time, one at a time. Every practice is doing a little bit. You can't do it all in one go. You know, that's how we're evolving, like, and then coming together in collectives and being able to communicate, like you said, and to kind of go back to the heart. Like it's basic as that, is go back to the heart and radiate that out, isn't it?
Yeah.
From
And it's even,
the faith in ourselves.
yes.
Yeah.
And it's even interesting that you talk about the weeds, because I suppose even weeds, we have a perception that they're not useful, you know, and it's really interesting that we, you know, I took a picture a couple of months ago with tons of nettles and horsetail all on the side of a ditch. And it's like, is this weed? Are these weeds, or is it the beauty of nature? Like when things are inconvenient to us, you know, we have a perception that we are the dominant force, and
True.
actually we're not. We're not a dominant force. We're living on a planet as part of the evolution of human consciousness, and as part of evolution. So we're not the same as we were 100 years ago, definitely not. But we can contribute to this, and nature must be part of that.
Yeah, I'm glad you pulled me up on the weeds. That's really important, because weeds are so essential, aren't they? Like they're like, if you get stung by the nettle, what are you looking for? You're then looking for a dog leaf. You know what I mean? Nature has within it whatever we need, I guess.
And it wasn't. I didn't mean it wasn't it wasn't pulling you up, Susie. It was.
No, but it just grabbed my attention when you said it. I was like, oh wow, I need to kind of watch that one, because yeah, it's like a misperception of, like, if I believe that they're the weeds, you know, I often use that kind of analogy, like of, you know, planting seeds and weeding when I'm directing people with meditations and stuff like that. So, but it's a good point. It's a really valid point too to take on board.
Yeah, because, you know, I suppose on some level, people have a perception on the land, oh, well, that's a pest. And, you know, that's a whole other maybe podcast that we could come together on. It's like, no, it's not. It's a perception. If it's, you know, it interferes with this, well, what can you partner plant with something? Partner plant. Can you partner plant with dandelions? They produce such important medicine. You know, the milk from the dandelion is really, really potent. So there's a whole. Sorry, I'll stop talking now. I'm kind of rabbiting.
No. You're absolutely right. All you have to do is change your perception on what is, in order to be able to accept it, because it is part of the environment that we live in, and we are part of it altogether. And one of the things in Montreal in the early 90s, there was a law where the city would have to cut the grass everywhere and make sure that no dandelions are growing anywhere. And then after a while, they changed that. They removed that law, and then it started growing everywhere. And people going, okay, now what are we going to do with them? And then they started making jam out of it, out of the flower.
Right,
So
right.
we went from, oh my God, this is a horrible plant growing over here, into, oh, let's welcome it in. It's the season. Let's see what we can do and work with it.
Yeah, 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 yeah. It's I'd love to talk more about it another time. I'm sure we could.
Yeah. So you have any programs running or any events that you're doing that you'd like to?
Well, so October, there's some listening to the land or subtle energies of the land courses on the Animate Earth website. Next spring, actually, I've just remembered Marion Boswell, who's an amazing landscape architect here in the UK. She and I are co-teaching on a retreat for the equinox at 42 acres, actually. So it's all on it's on that website. And if there are other programs coming on board, I'll definitely get in touch with you, Susie.
Definitely do.
Yeah, and thank you, Ramsey, for today and everything that you've shared. It's been a lovely experience for me, and I do hope your listeners and the people you journey with enjoy listening.
I'm sure they have. It was an awesome episode. We thank you so much for being here. So if anybody want to follow up with Bríd, it's animate-earth.org, and the other one is 42acres.com. So you can find her on those two websites. Linda Marrow, wonderful conversation. Thank you. It was awesome conversation. We really appreciate it. We appreciate you being here with us, and hopefully we'll see you in the future with another episode. We'd love to have you over.
You're very welcome, Ramsey, and bridwalsh.com is my own website if anybody wants to have a peek. There's no
I was just going to say, if anybody wants to do some one-to-one work, because I think that's really the most powerful place for us to start, as we all said, is with ourselves. So get on to Bríd's Brid Walsh, WALSH.com, and BRID is the BRID WALSH, in case somebody is listening to this, they don't get to see it, but it's in the bio anyway. We've put all of Bríd's links are in the bio, so you'll be able to catch her through those. From the bottom of our hearts, from one Cork woman to another. Totally appreciate it. Thank you so much. Really
I'm so grateful for your invitation, and we'll hook up outside another time, Susie. And Ramsey, thank you for all your support. I'm grateful to you both.
Thank you. And for our listeners, thank you so much for being with us, and we'll see you next week. Take care.